Speaker.
Dr. Megan Woods.
Mr. Speaker, it's disappointing. We are in the middle of a crisis in this country. We need change, and this is as good as it gets from the members opposite. This is all they can do: cut prices on wages. All they've got in them are failed 20th century policies and no creative 21st century solutions for the very real problems that we face as a nation. What we have heard from the members opposite today can only be described as astonishing. The last speaker, Mr Oakenville, the member not for the West Coast, told us that this needs to be seen as part of a package that National has put together to create jobs. Well, you've failed.
Order.
You have sorry, Mr Speaker, you certainly haven't failed. National has failed in its quest to create jobs. Let me tell you about your record. Let me tell National about its record in government. More than 50,000 more people are not in work than when you took office. 50,000 people leave this country every year since you took office because National fails to. Yes, I know. Because National has failed to offer them hope. This is something that the government has to own up to. There are currently 84,000 young people not in education, employment or in training. This is a failure by the members opposite. This is 17,000 more than when they took office. This is not something that members opposite can stand here and tell us that this is part of a successful package to put young people to work, because simply everything that has been tried to date has failed. There are 17,000 more. In fact, 50.3% of Pacifica women aged between 15 and 19 are currently unemployed. That is not something for any government to be proud of, and that is something that any government should give pause and reflect on what it is doing. And then we had Jamie Lee Ross, who stood up and ranted that Andrew Little should take responsibility for the 9,000 people who lost their jobs as a result of getting rid of the youth minimum wage. This is simply wrong. The Department of Labour's own reports show that this is simply wrong. A report released that by 2010 there was absolutely no change in youth unemployment as a result of scrapping the youth wage. Let's actually deal in some facts and not in some ideology. But you know what? Even if this did work, this is a government admitting failure. That this is all there is for New Zealand, the low road, a competitive advantage of low wages. Well, Labour believes in something more for our country and for our people. We believe in jobs and we believe in high wages. We believe in creating a real future for people. We do not want to join the race to the bottom that the National Government seems to want to excel in. We were told we like people on benefits. Well, actually what we like is that when people can work, that there is a government that is committed to creating jobs for them. And that is exactly what a Labour government will do. It is not something that we have seen this National Government in any way committed to. I want to refer to some previous statements in this House about the youth minimum wage. We are not convinced it would reduce youth unemployment, plus it would be a distraction from the really important work of improving productivity and growing the economy in order to create long-term jobs which will keep young people in New Zealand. A member of Labour? A member of the Greens? No, Paula Bennett in March 2010 in this House. And then we also had Paula Bennett When asked by Sir Roger Douglas whether she'd be supporting his bill, no, we will not be supporting the bill, as we are not convinced it would reduce youth unemployment. Plus, it would be a distraction from the really important work of improving productivity and growing the economy in order to create long-term jobs, which will keep young people in New Zealand. Well, haven't times changed? Now, National is not only supporting the race to the bottom and a youth rate, what it is doing is it's giving up on increasing productivity, growing the economy and keeping people in New Zealand. Because actually the only thing that National seems to want to export are our people. They don't want to do anything to help our industries that will actually create these high-value jobs and keep people here. And actually this bill that is before us shows the lack of understanding that members opposite have of what a modern 21st century economy looks like. You speak to any high-value manufacturer in this country, in an industry that will create high-paid jobs and keep our people here. 15% is around the usual level that wages make of their costs of production. 15%, so tinkering around with wages is not the way to help these businesses stay in New Zealand and succeed. If you're content to have a low-wage economy in poorly paid industries, then this is the road that this government is going down, and this is not something that Labor is content to be a part of. Labor has alternatives. We actually believe in giving our young people the skills needed to take part in this high-value economy. You know what? We wouldn't let 80% of $42 million budgeted to give young people the skills and training necessary to take part in the rebuild of Canterbury languish there unspent while we do nothing to help our young people. What Labor would do is invest in our young people, and it would get them into work. It wouldn't come up with micro schemes that do very little to address the fundamental problem that we have 84,000 young people who are not in education, employment and trading. The legislation that we have before us today is going to do nothing to address that. It is not something that is going to fundamentally shift this. Labor knows that in the 21st century we have to do things differently. We can't have the disappointing failed policies of the past. We need to think creatively. And that is why Labor is backing such things as, instead of paying the dole directly to young people, that we use that as a subsidy to employers to get them into apprenticeships so they can get the skills and the training necessary for them to sit here and live their lives here and contribute to an economy that will be better for all New Zealanders. But do we have any of that kind of thinking from members opposite? No. All we can think is, let's make it cheaper. A bunch of salesmen that think the only way to fix anything is to have a 50% cut price sale, not to actually look at improving things. What we have is a government opposite it is shown it has no ability to come up with solutions when it comes to creating jobs in this economy, because all it has presided over is a growing dole queue and a growing queue to leave the country. There are no solutions. This is going to be another piece of legislation that does nothing to address the problem. It is another piece of legislation that is an attack on young people. It is expecting people to live on an income that is simply not livable. I asked members opposite whether they could live on $10.80. I asked members opposite whether at the age of 19, and they may have had a child, whether they could really support their family. And you put this together with their 90-day trial legislation, which they've told us, you know, it's been so good. But where are the jobs? There are fewer of them than when they took office. They are shedding jobs, not creating jobs. This is a government that has run out of ideas. It is a disappointment to all of us, has no ability to turn things around, and it is a government that all it can do is sit there and sneer and not come up with ideas. This is a government that needs to go back and think about how we really will back our young people in this country, because the government opposite is failing to do so.
Mr. Speaker,
Simon O'Connor.
Mr. Speaker, in King Lear, he